Record. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us with Covenant Calendar Club. We're glad that you're here and hope that you're richly blessed by the teaching that you're about to receive. And we just want to take the time to acknowledge you and give you a warm hello and a shout out. Let's give our YouTube viewers, or those that are viewing this late, a big shout out and say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hey guys. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. And we hope that you are having a blessed weekend. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera or the video over to Charlene. So, Charlene, if you'll go ahead and take over, it's all yours.
Okay, here we go, everyone. We're so happy to have each and every one of you. I'm glad that you're so patient with me tonight. We'll be starting on part 3 of the moon study. I have titled it The Moon, Oh the Moon, but actually this one should be titled The Moonth, Oh the Moonth. And this is a very old word. I need to have some time to do the research on this word, but obviously you can see that moon turned into moonth, and now we say month today. And our question should be, oh moon, where have you been today? Were you in the day sky or were you in the night sky? And I can tell you that most days I'm taking a walk between 2 and 4 o'clock to go to the post office, and I often see the moon up in the sky, a lot of times in the sky. So tonight we're going to be sort of skipping over the 3391 material that I really wanted to plan for tonight, but we will get there. We're going to leave this part for the next section to see if Yahuwah set apart month will be anything close to this 3391 lunation cycle. Just a little bit of a review, and I call this the moon cheat sheet. I think that Mario has put it up on the Covenant Calendar announcements with a link. So by all means, do print it out, put it in your Bible. It will be, this is your cheat sheet. You'll find out when we're all done why this is such an important slide. Anyway, 3394, Yerak, is our noun component. It's talking about the literal moon in the sky. And we were going to work on the 3391, trying to get through all of it tonight, but we're going to do the first part. But 3391, Yorak, is our verb. It's your action word for the lunation cycle. 3842 is your adjective, the color of the moon, mostly white, is what Labana tells us. And 7720, Saharan, is our simile comparison, comparing something to the same shape as the moon. And we're going to also go through 2320, Kodesh, which is actually another verb form. And it's a repetition, that's your action word, but it's the verb for the noun. The verb form is in 2318 and the noun is 2320. We have the same thing. We have our noun for the moon as 94, and the root word is the verb. So we have the same thing happening with 2320 as well. And our question all the way through our calendar study is, why are there really 2 forms for one moon, 2 verb forms? Do we really need to have 2 action words for one moon in the sky? That was my question a couple of years ago. And it's a good question that we need to answer, but we have a good question for 3842, which we're going to look at briefly tonight. Now, in your Strong's Concordance or in your Bible, you will see that the first number for moon that comes up is 3394. The next one that comes up is 3391. But I want to do 3842 and 7720 first because they're very, very short and they're easy to get through. So we're going to look at Labana. What color will you be tonight? Is it pure white, blood red, or will it be harvest gold? The moon can have a variety of different colors. So we're going to take a really close look at 3842. It's only a few slides. When you look in the Strong's Concordance, you'll see that there are 3 references. And when I checked in the Englishman's Concordance, because my Bible program separates them out, it also had 3 references, and here they are. I know you can't see it because it's pretty small, but the references were exactly the same for the Strong's and for the Englishman's. We're going to look at those verses tonight. But the first thing we want to do is look at the definition for 3842 as an adjective. In the Strong's, it says a labana. It says from 3835, properly white, white as the moon. It also says to see 3838, and we'll be doing all that here in just a moment. The Brown Driver Briggs lexicon that lots of people like to use simply says 3842, the moon as white. I have found that Brown Driver Briggs can often be lacking in information. Not that Strong's is the best, because there's lots of other areas that you can research, but I'm finding that Strong's is easiest for most people to use if you know how to use it properly. And I do want to tell you right up front that every Strong's number that is connected to 3842 connects to whiteness. And let's take a look at that. So I just gave you that definition there. And we're going to look at all of these numbers. So 3835 was the first one listed. Let's look at it first. You can see that it's saying that there's your primitive root. It means to be white or to become white. Also to make bricks. Apparently when they made bricks back then, they were white bricks. And then it says from 3843. Well, let's look up that one. It's labena. And it says from 3835, which we just looked at. And again, a brick. From the whiteness of the clay. Seems to be that white keeps coming up. Then we have another number, 3828. We may as well just keep going. And again, labana and labona. And it's linking to 3836. And it also says frankincense. Apparently frankincense has a whiteness, or the smoke is white, like an incense. Well, let's just keep going. We'll look at 3836, Laban or Laban. From Genesis 49:12, I think that basically is going to link up to Laban's proper name. And again, it's giving us the definition of white. You can see that all of these words have similar spellings and pronunciations. You can see that they're all similar. This is a family of words. White. And then we come back to 3838, and we've come all the way around. We've made our full circle, and everything to do about this root word has to do with whiteness. I just found that you get quite a bunny trail there. Well, let's look up 3 scriptures for labana. It won't take very long. Song of Solomon 6 verse 10. Who is she that looketh forth as the morning, fair as the moon? This would be fair as the white moon, clear as the sun, and terrible as an army with banners. Well, it doesn't sound like anything in that verse connects the moon with the month. It just is telling us about the color. Isaiah 24:23, then the moon, and it would be white, every definition links to white, then the white moon shall be confounded, and the sun ashamed, when Yehovah of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem. Nothing in that verse connects to the beginning of a month. And then Isaiah 30:26. We're going to be looking at this in a little more detail later on with Tim. Moreover, the white moon, or the white light of the moon, shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold as the light of 7 days, in the day that Yahuwah bindeth up the breach of his people. And I need to apologize, it's not Isaiah 30, it's going to be another verse from Isaiah. But this is an interesting verse because it says, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold. This is a prophecy for when Yahuwah recreates the new heavens and the new earth. It'll be interesting to see a moon shining like that. Again, nothing there connected to the month. So it looks to me like the 3842 moon color cannot commence the biblical month. All of the verses talked about white or whiteness as the color of the moon. That was the context. There was nothing there that told us that this particular number starts the month. No support whatsoever. It's just telling you what color the moon is in the sky. That ends that little piece for 3842. It's pretty easy. The fourth word number that comes up for moon when you look in your scriptures is 7720, Saharan. And again, this is the simile. And if you remember your grammar lessons from school, similes usually use the words like or as. And in this case, it is comparing something that is like the moon or as the moon in a shape of a full moon or a crescent or any shape like that. Strong's has only one listing, but the Englishman's concordance gave us 3 listings. So we'll look at all 3 listings tonight. It's not too many. And we want to see if this has anything to do with connecting the moon to the month. And I know you can't see it, but when you have your slides, you can pick them up close and maybe read them there from my Englishman's concordance. 7720 is actually, like I said, the simile comparison of an object to the moon in the sky. It is Saharan, from the same as 5469, which actually means roundness. And it can be like a round pendant for the neck or an ornament. And you'll see this come up, round tire, like the moon. There's your simile word right there, like. And then it says shav. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it says to see 7723, and we're going to do that on the next slide. When you look up Brown Driver Briggs, it has the moon, and then it says the crescent as an ornament. So the definition is just a little tiny bit different. Let's look up the next part of this shav part of 7723. And I would like you to pay attention to the definitions regarding destruction and devastation. And how could these 2 words be connected to the definitions that we just read about 7720 as being a comparison? I did not have time to break this open, but I will just leave it here tonight for something for you to think about and also for homework. So it goes on to say, from the same as 7722, in the sense of desolating, evil, as destructive, literally ruin, morally and especially guile. Figuratively, it's idolatry, uselessness, deceptiveness. Then it has false, falsely, lie, lying, vain, and vanity. All of these definitions are something to do with desolation and destructiveness, ruin, and then idolatry is mixed in there as well. Let's look at 7722. This is from an unused root meaning to rush over. It's a tempest. Again, the word devastation, desolation, destroy, destruction, and again, storm and wasteness. I find these are very interesting definitions that are connected to our simile 7720 for Saharan. I do not know how to make the connection here right this moment, but maybe somebody will give a comment about that. We only have a few scriptures for 7720. Let's look them up. In Judges 8:21, it says, "And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna and took away the ornaments that were on their camels' necks." I'm just wondering, Tim, if you can give us any information on Zebah and Zalmunna, if you're there.
Yeah, Zebah and Zalmunna were the ones that Gideon was ordered to destroy. Yahuwah told him to take them out permanently. They're the ones that had the crescent moons hung around the necks of their camels. And Gideon took these crescent moons kind of as his personal booty. And the scriptures records later on that these became a snare to his family. In other words, they were a bit of a curse because they became what they should not be.
Well, that would make me feel like they were probably worshiping the moon, and they had these ornaments as their sacred little keepsakes or whatnot all. Another verse in Judges 8, verse 26, and the weight of the golden earrings, besides the ornaments and the collars and purple raiment, and beside the chains that were about their camels' necks. So apparently this had some value to it as well. Isaiah 3:18 is our third verse. It says, in that day, Yahuwah will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments. That is 5914, just for information. He will take away their tinkling ornaments about their feet and their cauls and their round tires like the moon. Now, cauls is an old word. I didn't have a clue what it meant. We're going to look at it. Round tires like the moon. The first thing I defaulted to was the tires on your car or your bicycle. So we better look up some of these words. And also we should pay attention to these extra Hebrew definitions that are similar to roundness. So the tinkling ornaments is 5914. It's actually an anklet bracelet. And of course they could have similes of crescent moons or full moons on them, but something that's round that goes around the anklet. Cauls is like a round netting for the hair. You can compare that to Ezekiel 24. And it says there, bind the tire of thine head. This is not a rubber tire that's on your car, but it's talking about something that's round. So bind the roundness of thy head. It's actually just a fancy headdress. Interesting. You can always learn something new. And round tires like the moon in 7720 basically is comparing to a round neck pendant. So now that you've seen the definitions of these numbers, and we just read definitions from 7723 and 7722 about all the destruction and desolation, how do these definitions for 7720 compare to what we just read on the slide before? If somebody has time to do some homework, I would like to see that study. So our final conclusion for Saharan is here, and we found that it's just a simile and it doesn't compare anything to the month. It does not commence the biblical month. All of the definitions compare the roundness of ornaments to the roundness of the moon. It's just kind of interesting. And again, no biblical support that tells us that any phase of the moon or any ornament starts the month in the sky for the festival month. Now, we're going to go through a very interesting study here that Tim actually gave last week on Covenant Calendar Conversation class. And I thought that the study was so good that we really need to include it here because it is a very important piece of what's happening. I will be letting Tim go through these slides. I think there's about 20 of them or so. As soon as I get my hands on something, it always has to change. So I'm just turning the mic over to Tim right now, and I will work the PowerPoint from this end and hope that we can do this together.
Everybody says that Yahuwah is all about unity. What about Yahuwah's covenant of division? Has anybody looked at his covenant of division?
Isn't that the same as holy, to be set apart?
Yes, that is a division of another type also. Yes, very good, Mario. Thank you. Which two celestial entities determine the divisions as commanded by Yahuwah? Remember, he made two great entities. They found them in Genesis 1:14 and 16. That's where we read about these two great lights. But the division we find in Genesis 1:14. We can also look in Jeremiah 33:20. And this will give us the outline of the covenants of the light season and of the night season. This is where you will find a good coverage on these covenants. And the question that we have is, does the moon have a part in either of these two covenants? Or is the moon just an innocent bystander that has nothing to do with it? The fourth day of creation, Genesis 1:14. And Elohim said, let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. And let them be for signs and appointed times and for days and years. Genesis 1:15. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it came to be so. Verse 16. And Elohim made two great lights. Please read that carefully. It does not say three great lights. It says two great lights. The greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night and the stars. Verse 17. And Elohim set them in the expanse of the heaven to give light on the earth. What were they to do? They were to give light. Verse 18. And they were to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the fourth day. So the fourth day was a day of division, separation and division. And that is a covenant. Two covenants, actually. When the sun rises, I ask you, how much darkness is seen after the sun has risen? Is it possible that the sun can divide the light from the night? Is that what happens? Or is there darkness that comes after the sun has arisen? I have not seen that. In the absence of clouds, what light is seen consistently all night, every night, 365 nights of the year? The Matzeroth is the light that is seen consistently all night and every night, 365 nights of the year. It's the Matzeroth. Have you ever seen a full array of stars in the daylight? Can the Matzeroth and other stars differentiate a night season from a light season? Remember, Genesis 1:14 reminds us of the covenant to divide the light from the night. And so I ask you again, have you seen the Matzeroth or any stars in the daytime, or have they been divided by the light? Here's a sky event that is captured in September 10, 2009. On the right, top right corner, you'll see the moon. The moon is in the sky. On the left-hand side, a little bit lower, you'll see the sun. And our context here is Genesis 1:14. The question I have, is the moon capable of separating the light and night seasons? Remember, this is talking about Genesis 1:14, where the covenants of separation were clearly documented. Jeremiah 31:35 gives declaration for the two great light givers. Thus saith Yahuwah, which giveth the what? Giveth the sun for a light by day. That's fairly clear. You've got that documented fairly well. And here's our night sky. And I'm going to read that verse. I'm going to start with it again. Thus saith Yahuwah, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and of the stars for a light by night. Do you notice the absence of mention of the moon for a light at night? Why is there an absence? Why is it only spoken about these stars? Does the moon produce its own light? Here's Strong's H216. The word is or, that is light. And it is a feminine noun. This is extremely important. It is not masculine. Isaiah 13:10. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Please notice that, her light. Let's look at some gender issues and concerns. What gender is the 3394 moon? If you look up on the right side, you'll see 3394 Yariach. And what is it? What type of a word is this? It is a masculine noun. Very, very interesting that it's masculine. Yariach, the moon, has a masculine gender. We need to keep this in the back of our mind. Okay, let's read Isaiah 13:10. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. What gender is the sun? If we look on the right-hand side, there's Strong's 8121 Shemesh. What gender is the sun? You'll see it is both masculine and feminine. It has been given designation of both. And for Isaiah 13:10, while it may appear on the surface that the masculine moon produces its own light, how can it be said that the masculine moon is producing its own light when Isaiah's reference to her light is feminine, like as in the sun? Ezekiel 32:7. And when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven and make the stars thereof dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give. What will it not give? The moon will not give her light. Remember, the masculine or the moon is masculine. So how can the moon be given her light when the feminine is directly mentioning of the sun? So the moon will not be giving the sun's light as in a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not speaking of the light of the moon because the moon does not have light. And you'll notice that arrow to connect it is crossed out because the moon does not have its own light. It is simply a reflector.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the moon does not give the sun its light, not ever. Yes, we notice that modern translations insert its, replacing the feminine her, yet the word or light remains feminine. So how can the moon be said to be giving its own light? Everyone has seen a moon in the night sky. Does that mean the moon rules the night? Here's a beautiful picture. And I see this quite often. I work outside most often, all the time usually. And I look up in the sky and I see this big moon up there and I question myself. If the moon is up in the sky, in the daylight sky, and it's supposed to separate the night from the darkness, it's not doing a very good job because it is not separating the light from the darkness. The moon is quite visible in the daylight. before the next scripture, look at this blue sky. Observe the moon in the daylight sky for nearly half of each month and ask yourself if you understand this next verse correctly. There's that moon in the sky again. It is a beautiful creation of our Creator. There's no question about it. Genesis 1:16. And Yahuwah maketh two great luminaries, the great luminary for the rule of the day, and the small luminary and the stars for the rule of the night. Psalms 136:8. The sun to rule by day, for his mercy endures forever. Psalms 136:9. The moon and the stars to rule the night. So back in Genesis 1:14, when Yahuwah records there that he made two great lights, why is it that people want to include the moon as a reflector? Why do they include it as a light? Here we clearly see the sun is to rule by day and the stars to rule by night. Yet why does man want to include a reflector in that ruling? Question. Why is the moon in this verse appearing as one of the sky rulers? Read Psalms 136 again. To him who alone made great lights, for his mercy endures forever. The sun to rule by day, the moon, and the stars to rule the night. The chapter context, and this is serious stuff. Context, studying the scripture is kind of like real estate. When they talk about real estate, they say location, location, and location. Well, when we study scripture, the same thing can be said, only it's context, context, context. And here, the chapter context is about the Creator establishing heavenly bodies in the heavens. Not all of them are light givers. Question. But what type of ruler rules in absence without an authoritative representation present? This is an incredible picture. I have personally seen pictures like, or seen this happen in the sky. I'm quite attentive when these things happen. And one of the reasons I look closely because I've heard that the moon has light. I've been told that. So in a lunar eclipse, when the sunlight is removed from our viewpoint by the moon, how much light does this moon emit? How much of this darkness radiates light? And I encourage you, the next time you see one of these eclipses, ask yourself how much light is coming from that moon. Moon questions. Is this sky picture a night sky or day sky? Will you ever see a full moon in the day sky? What about this moon in the day sky? Here's a daytime moon on January 28, 2013, as seen by an Earth Sky Facebook observer from Ridgecrest, California in the Mojave Desert. Notice the moon in this photo is closer to the western horizon at sunrise than the moon 1 day later, the photo with the blue sky and the trees. That one is 1 day later. Daytime moon, May 27, 2012. This is Darren Dunks in Netherton, the UK. You can see the moon during the day whenever it's fairly large in the phase and fairly far from the sun on the sky's dome. So you need to know the date of full moon to know when to see a daytime moon. Learn the date of the next or last full moon. Then start to look before the daytime moon about a week before the full moon in the afternoon sky. After the full moon, look again for a week or so, this time in the morning sky. Most important criterion, look up. If you do, you'll often see the moon in the day. Observation of the day moon. So when can you see the moon in the daytime? Basically, you need three things to see the daytime moon. Look within a week or so of the date of the full moon. Before full moon, look for the daytime moon in the afternoon. After full moon, look for the daytime moon in the morning. Look up. The daytime moon is often up there, even though it may be pale against the blue sky. Yes, I see it quite often myself. Only the full moon reigns in the sky all night long, one night each lunar month. Just because the moon has nothing to do with the separation of the day and night seasons, what has that got to do with the moon determining the commencement of any months? I don't believe it has anything to do with the commencement of the months. Can the phases of the moon separate or rule the months? It depends on who you ask, and it depends on which month. Will 3391 provide answers? I do expect it will. It'll provide a lot of answers. It'll open up our eyes very, very clearly about the rules of the moon, what it actually does, what Yahuwah's actual intention was for it.
Thank you, Tim. And I just had somebody call me this week that is, actually they were studying something on the moon that someone had sent them, and she was very excited. And we were talking about, does the moon have light? And Jane said, oh, Charlene, it does have light. I just got a paper in the mail, and it says that the moon has light. And you know what the verse was? Isaiah 13:10, the one that you had in this study. And the confusion was her light. It sounded like her light belonged to the moon. And I just realized after I had done that study, put it into the PowerPoint for today, how important that verse is when you have to look up the genders of the sun and the moon and of the word light or. So just that alone would change things a whole lot. This is the beginning of 3391. We are not going to get through the whole study tonight. I had to break it in two, but I'll show you what we're doing. It is Yarak. This is the verb form. It means the cycle or the lunation of the moon is generally labeled as a month. And in the Strongs, there were 2 verses that were referenced, and the English men's had 13. So that was a little bit more. When I saw that there was 13, I thought, they're not all the same. So what's going on here? So for this study, we need to all remember that Yahuwah knows the end from the beginning. And he also knew that Lucifer was going to rebel, that Lucifer would be cast out of heaven, the creation week would hold the pattern for worship statutes, and Satan would try to usurp worship from Yahuwah's children on earth, just like he did in heaven. That's just a little introduction there. This particular study for 3391, Yarak, is so huge that I had to separate it into 9 different compartments. We'll only look at a few of them tonight. The first one that we're going to look at is creation patterns, about perfection, devastation, and restoration. That is a pattern. The second one we're going to look at is on creation months, about a first day month and a fourth day month. Both of them had 30 days per month. We will also look at lunar months, basically the sidereal month and the synodic month. We will spend a lot of time here, and this is where we'll end our study tonight. And then number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and number 9 will be surprises for the second part of this study. I'm not going to tell you what they are. We have enough work here just to get through these first 3 sections tonight. So just sit back, relax, and see what you learn. I'll just give you the 3391 references. Again, like I said, Strong's only had 2 listings. The Englishman's had 11. 2 of the listings used 3391 as the word moon, and 11 used it as month. We will do that in the next study. And on my Englishman's Concordance, that's what I found, the 11 listings right there. Just a little note, again, about these references that actually use the word moon. There was only 2 of them. Strong's is going to list this 3391 as an unused root and as uncertain. I found that rather interesting. And Strong's will also list the definition of lunation before the definition of month, which we need to closely examine. And then Brown, Driver, and Briggs is opposite. He lists the first definition as month. So let's take a look at that. Here's the Strong's. It says yarak, from an unused root of uncertain signification. Then it says a lunation, and then it says month. And of course, the King James Version can use either the word month or moon. We are going to look at the lunation definition, not today though. That will be in the next part. It's very interesting. Brown, Driver, Briggs, as I said, they list a month first, which is a lunar cycle, and then he lists the moon second. And he also has a month or a calendar month. Calendar month is listed 11 times in the scriptures for 3391. So you can see that Brown, Driver, Briggs is almost opposite of the Strong's. You need to think about that. I know a lot of people use Brown, Driver, Briggs above the Strong's, but what I'm finding is that Strong's is more true to actually what's happening in the verses. So let's look at our first creation pattern section about perfection, devastation, and restorations. And there's only 2 slides in this little section. It's pretty easy. Creation week has 2 types of months. We're going to be looking at that. And I want you to remember, I like what Brad Scott says, Yahuwah is smarter than we are, and he knows what he is doing. And when I have found the moon study as it's being broken open, he really does know what he's doing. And that is exactly why he gave mankind and the earth 2 types of months at creation. They're both very important. The first one is the 30-day creation month for the commencement of his monthly and yearly worship statutes. That was the first one and the most important. The second month was the 30-day lunar month, and it was for the agricultural ordinances. Why? To bless the earth and mankind with food and water, seasons for planting and harvesting of the land, and tides to bless the seas. That was just some of the things that we looked at for ordinances. Basically, 3391 shows up in the Torah in Deuteronomy 33:14. This is the first time you will find it in the scriptures. It is in Torah, right there in Deuteronomy 33:14. It's talking about the ordinances. The scriptural pattern and the moon do have some connections. It has many repetitions. I'm only going to list a few tonight, but this repetition of something that starts in perfection, then it has to face devastation, and then have restoration. And I know as you read your Bible, you'll see this all over the place. I'm just going to give a few examples so that you kind of understand. On the first day of creation, we had perfection. Then there was some devastation. And what did Yahuwah have to do? started to restore, started to rebuild what had happened. Adam and Eve, same pattern. They were placed in the garden. They were perfect. And upon that first sin, there was devastation. And what are they looking forward to, and us as well, since that sin problem? Restoration. Same pattern. Yahuwah's people and their disobedience, all through the Old Testament, they started out with perfection like Adam and Eve did. It didn't take very long, and they were in a devastating situation because of their disobedience. And especially when you look at the patterns after Moses died, was continual restoration. They would go into bondage because they had been disobedient. And after about 40 years, they would cry and say, get us out of this mess. And what did Yahuwah do? He restored them, brought them back into restoration with himself. You see those patterns everywhere. The same thing happens with the creation moon. It started out perfect. There was a devastation. We're going to do a lot of work around this piece in another teaching. This basically happened at Hezekiah's miracle when the moon was altered. And that cycle had been going on, that perfect cycle of the lunar moon was for 3,300 years, approximately 3,300 years after creation. That's over half of what the time was allotted to this earth. And then we are told that the moon is going to have a restoration. Remember, we read that verse, that the moon will be as bright as the sun, and the sun will be 7 times brighter. So those are just 4 examples of this pattern that you'll see, but we will also see this pattern in the calendar studies. Okay, we're ready to go on to our second section of creation months. We're going to be looking at the first day that begins Yahuwah's scriptural month, and we will look at the 4th day that begins his lunar month. They're both very important months, and it's just a short presentation of about 5 slides. I think it was in the very first moon presentation that we mentioned that Yahuwah has 2 different kinds of creation months. A festal month, or a beginning for a set apart month, and then the moon month. And both of them had 30 days each. Now, we didn't figure that out the very first time we had looked at the moon, but now we understand that both of those months had 30 days each. So next we're going to take a simple trip around the first creation week, and we're going to look at some calendars. Before I do anything on this particular slide, because it's a very easy slide, it was about 1.5 years ago that I was talking to a feast keeper. I think he was down in Oklahoma, and we were talking about how the month begins. Now, he was following the moon month, like many people do, and I couldn't get him to understand what I was trying to share with him. So I asked him 3 very, very simple questions that a child could answer. And when I got done asking these 3 questions, and he never had an answer for me, he was so upset at me. And this is what he said: I have never heard of anything so ridiculous in all my life. I just went, what? These are the 3 questions that I asked him that he said were so ridiculous. And after that, he hung up the phone. Here's the first question. On the first day of the month, is that considered the first day of the first week on creation week? The first day of creation, would you consider that the first day of the first week? The answer is either yes or no. Here's the second question. On the first day of the week, would you consider that the first day of the first month of Yahuwah's calendar? Answer, yes or no. Here's the third question. On the first day of the week, would you consider that the first day of the first year of creation for this earth? 3 simple questions. They have very simple answers, and this is going to be part of the answer for understanding Yahuwah's 2 different months when he started creating. But I got in trouble for asking those questions, and you might too. Well, let's look at the 30 days in Yahuwah's creation month that began on the first day that he started in Genesis 1:1. In Genesis 7:11, this is the not the creation account, but Noah's account of days per month. And this is around 2300 BC. The first day of the first month of creation is right there. In Genesis it says, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month and the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up. And then Genesis 8:3, and after the end of the 150 days, the water was abated. And Genesis 8:4, and the ark rested in the 7th month and on the 17th day of the month. So from the second month to the 7th month, you have 5 months. You divide that into 150 days, and you get 30 days per month. It's pretty simple math. So you count 30 days in the first month, and when you get to number 1, you start over and you count for the second month. And like I said, the date of this verse is approximately 2300 BC or 1700 years from creation. So at least up to this point, we have 30-day months for Yahuwah's creation. And we also have 30-day months with Moses from Passover to Pentecost. That moves us way down the line. The moon's lunation cycle was also given at creation, but it started on the 4th day of the month. That was the first day of the first lunar cycle. And you count 30 days, and you come to the first day of the second lunar cycle. So the lunar month was always 3 days behind Yahuwah's set-apart month start. They both had 30-day months. And I do believe this is how the pagans got worshiping the moon. It was the same length of time. They just defaulted their month to a moon month. The moon's lunation is very special. It had a 30-day period created for the ordinances of the moon. Remember, we did all of that with the 3394 section last time. Very important to have this moon month. And there was nothing imperfect about this moon month. And there still isn't anything imperfect about it. It's still doing its job of giving us the ordinances that bless the earth and mankind with all of the agricultural bounties, many, many things. It's still doing its job. In fact, this moon month was never to be linked to the commencement of Yahuwah's worship statutes. It had the other job description. Found that very interesting too. We're going to finish up with this part of the presentation out of the 9 divisions that we had for this particular 3391, but they are heavy slides. There's a lot going on here. So let's just take a look, and we would be happy to take questions when we're done. This is talking about lunar months, aside from the creation week. We're not talking about the Creator's month that starts on day 1 of creation, but we're talking about the lunar month that started on day 4 of creation. There are 2 of them. One is called a sidereal month. It is 27.3 days long approximately. And there's the synodic month that is approximately 29.5 days. This might be new information for some of you, as it has been for me. At creation, there was no such thing as a sidereal or a synodic lunar month. In fact, this didn't come about until Hezekiah's sundial event, approximately 701 BC, and that is around 3,300 years after creation. We're going to have a lot of details of this study in future. It won't be tonight or even the next time that we study. But a very interesting part about this sundial event is that there are 3 scripture witnesses found in 2 Kings 20, 2 Chronicles 32, and Isaiah 38, verses 7 to 8. Now, when you're looking through your scriptures, if you see something mentioned twice, that means listen up, pay attention, it's important. But when you see something listed 3 times like this, it's really important. I remember reading my Bible through for the very first time, all the way through, and I did this in the year 2000. I had read around in my scriptures lots all over the place, but I had never ever read from cover to cover. And I decided in the year 2000 I was going to read my scriptures, whether it killed me or not, and it almost did because I wasn't used to it. But you know what, everyone? And I wasn't a feast keeper at that time, was just an ordinary person going to church like everybody else. I noticed that this account for Hezekiah was in the Old Testament 3 times. And I remember thinking, why is that story there 3 times? Because I found between Kings and Chronicles, lots of the stories were repeated twice. But this one has 3 mentions. And that puzzled me. And I do believe that Yahuwah was preparing me for this calendar study, because this is so important that it's recorded 3 times, and we'll do some extra work on that. You might want to too. Anyway, everything changed with Hezekiah. Now, Yahuwah has some very special, significant numbers, and they all have a purpose. And some of these examples of these in numbers are, number 1, like 1 Yahuwah, 2 for unity. Then there's 3. I'm not going to go into it. There's a lot of, you do study on these numbers, there's incredible meaning behind these numbers. Number 4, 7 for what? Perfection. 10 for completeness. Some of these are great calendar numbers, like 12 for 12 months. 24 is an important number, 24 elders around the throne. 30, the number of days in a month. Then you have the number 40. That was important. 40 days and 40 nights. You find that all over the place. 42 is an important number, whether it was 42 campsites, 42 months, lots of calendar language around 42. 50 days to Pentecost, and every 50 years there was a Jubilee. Of course, the number 70 is really important, and 100. And the 120 Jubilees of 50 years each gives you 6,000 years. 400 and 430 are special numbers with Abraham and his prophetic timeline all the way up to Egypt. And of course, 490, super important number of the 490 years from Daniel's vision, his timeline up to the Messiah. Lots of study around that. Of course, 1,000 is a really important number as well. And what about this number? 144,000. So I'd like you to consider these numbers, though, about 27.3 and about 29.5. Would you think that these numbers are any part of Yahuwah's numbering system after you've looked at some of the important numbers? And trust me, this could be a very huge study just on numbers. I think it would show us all a lot if we would just take time to explore. But we're going to look at these 2 numbers tonight, 27.3 and 29.5. Do they ring a bell? We're also going to look at 2 different lunar months that happen today. One is called a sidereal month that has alignment with the stars. And the second one is a synodic month that has alignment with the sun and moon phases. They're very, very different. In the sidereal month, this is the time that it takes for the moon to complete 1 orbit of Earth. It takes an average of 27.3 days. Now, if this is new information, don't worry about it. We're going to have some charts. We're going to look at them and try to understand this a little bit more carefully. It's the time that it takes for the moon to complete 1 orbit of Earth in an average of about 27.3 days. The synodic month is a little bit different. This is the time that it takes the moon to reach the same visual phase, an average of about 29 and a half days or 29 phases. So if you're using your conjunction or your crescent moon or full moon, it doesn't matter which one you choose, it takes about 29 and a half days to go from that phase till you reach the same phase again. The lunar sidereal and the synodic periods can be described like this from a website here. It says the moon's sidereal orbital period, or a sidereal month, is about, that little squiggly line there means about 27.3 days. Again, this is the time interval that the moon takes to complete its 360-degree orbit of the Earth relative to the fixed stars. That's the important part right there. It has to be relative to a fixed star or stars. The period of the lunar phases, or the synodic month, and for example, from one full moon to the next full moon, it's longer than 27.3. It is about 29.5 days. So if you have a new moon, you have to go all the way to another new moon, and when you do that, you've extended your orbit for a total of 390 degrees, and you're aligning with the sun, and that's what completes a synodic month. We're going to take a look at this. So the sidereal month has 360-degree orbit, and the synodic month has a 390-degree orbit. Sound confusing? Yes, it sure can sound confusing. Now, I decided to put these examples into two sections, one for a globe Earth model and one for flat Earth model, because not everybody understands flat Earth and not everybody agrees with globe Earth. But there's more pictures coming up on the internet now for flat Earth to be demonstrated, but I wanted to demonstrate it first with the globe Earth model. So if you look at A, that's over here at this section here, the top one, there's two diagrams. I want to show you the A diagram first. This is where your new moon is aligning with the sun and the star. This is just for demonstration purposes right here. So this is your new moon aligning with your sun and the stars. In diagram B, we have 27.3 days later, as the moon has been doing its orbit, it now conjuncts with the very same star as it did 27.3 days before. Okay, but the next part is 29.5 days later is when the moon is going to conjunct with the sun. So it's not in alignment with the stars anymore. Now that's interesting, and I'd say that's kind of a mess. I don't know if it probably didn't do that when it had a 30-day month back at creation. Let's look at it in just a little bit different type of a model, and I'm going to leave this up for a little bit so you can kind of look at it. It's just another view using globe Earth, and I'll try to use my mouth to show you what's happening here, this mouse. We start here on day one with your new moon, and it's for globe Earth, it's going to circle the Earth, it's going to orbit the Earth, and as it does, the Earth is moving, and the Earth is moving, and as it comes around, down here at the bottom, in 27.3 days, that new moon will be lined up with the star that it was lined up with the first time. It will be lined up with that distant star. But it takes the moon another 2.2 days to move in its orbit until it is lined up with the sun. Can you see that? It takes 2.2 extra days to line up with the sun. It's not lined up with the distant star anymore. The first alignment, this is your sidereal month, and the second one is your synodic month. It's a very interesting picture. I wanted to do the globe Earth model first so that you could kind of get a visual to what's happening. And I have a picture for the flat Earth. I'd like you to layer that over the flat Earth picture that's coming up, the flat Earth model. A lot of us are still learning about flat Earth, and I will give you a close-up view, but I just wanted to give you the big picture to start with. We're going to be starting with our new moon here at 0.0 or whatever, at that dot, and it is lining up with the star. It goes all the way around, and in 27.3 days, it is lined up with that star again, but it takes another 2.2 days for the moon to travel next door to line up with the sun. So let's do a close-up. You can see this a little bit better. So this is your sidereal lunar month here, this one right here. Here's your moon that is lined up with your distant star. It does its orbit all the way around, comes back in 27.3 days, lined up with the star, and then it needs 2.2 extra days to line up with the sun. This is your sidereal month right here. This is your synodic month when it lines up with the sun. I hope that helps a little bit. If anybody has questions at the end, we can always come back to this slide, slide 67. So I just wonder if you can answer this question. Which month is the true lunar month according to the rabbis? The sidereal month or the synodic month? Most feast calendars that use the moon month mark the new moon day according to a particular moon phase. And it could be the conjunction, could be the crescent moon, and I also know some are marking their month with the full moon now. They do not use the completion of the sidereal month cycle. They use the synodic month. I'm sure that you know that too. The synodic month and the Great 13 cover-up, do you know what it is? The synodic month produces a 13th month about every 3 years. It is definitely linked to the festal worship statutes of every moon-based calendar. And that's what we did when we started learning about the feasts and festivals. We were following this synodic month. We didn't know anything about it though. But the sidereal month, it will produce a 13th month every single year, this number 13. And when we do a study on the scriptures, we will find there is no such mention of a 13th month. That's coming up in another study as well. What is your answer to this question? Did Yahuwah change his mind and give his people a new set-apart month with about 27.3 days or about 29.5 days per month? Do you think he did that? Are there scriptures that say that Yahuwah can change his mind? Or do they say he cannot change, he does not lie? And the answer is about 27.3 and about 29.5. These are not part of Yahuwah's numbering system. They do not work with his beautiful, perfect numbers. And can you answer another question? How did this synodic month cycle ever receive custody of the festal month? How did that ever happen? Well, that's because it was closer to Yahuwah's 30-day month. The sidereal month only has 27.3 days, so it was a little bit too far away. So the synodic month was chosen over the sidereal month. And the history of this synodic month and its attachment to worship and religious service has extremely deep roots, first with the pagans, and then eventually it was adopted by Yahuwah's rebellious leaders and people. This is the whole story of the Old Testament of them wandering away from Yahuwah in many, many ways, but one of the major ways was in their worship. It's a sad story. We'll be doing a whole big study on that alone coming up. So the truth of the matter for 3391 is that we're going to have to go to part 4 to find the rest of the story on the Moonth, the Moonth, and we will continue that on August 3rd, if all goes well. And that's where we will find that Yarek will be fully investigated to see how its lunation cycle month aligns with the synodic month. Will the definitions of lunar and lunation lend any surprising information? I'm sure it will, as it did for me, a lot of surprising information. Well, that's the end of the study tonight. It's just short, and if it was too long, I hope not. But if you have questions, you're certainly welcome to share them with us. And if you need assistance, send us an email. That's all she wrote. Short and sweet.
Praise Yah, Charlene. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, excellent job. Wow, that does bring up some things. I had never heard of a synodic month before. Never heard that word, synodic. Wow.
That synodic month is equal to the Metonic month, which is recorded to have been discovered by the Greeks around the time of just after Hezekiah's sundial incident. And our history records that it was a man named Meton who discovered it. Now, if you go to 2 Kings 11:18 or 2 Chronicles 23:17, you will read about Matan